Hello and welcome to a different kind of Labcoat Agents webinar. Today we're going to get real and raw with you. We've got a couple agents here who have personal experience with having coronavirus, COVID-19, the big scary thing that has changed our world and country and personal lives. And thankfully, they are ready and willing to share with us about what life has been like for them, what their business experience was like while being sick. So let's just do this. Why don't you two introduce yourselves? Give us a little snippet. Introduce yourselves, a little bit of what your life and business is like, and when you were sick, like the period of time you were sick, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. Tara, go ahead.
I'm sorry, start because Sandy just sent me a message about something that I want to check out.
Okay, we'll have Erica go for it.
Okay. All right, so my name is Erica Steetenroth, and I am a real estate agent in Katy, Texas, which is a suburb to the west of Houston. And I've been in real estate for 5 years, generally about my business, the kind of agent I am. Last year, I did 39 transactions. This year so far, I'm somewhere between 32 and 35 closed. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of my production since I've had my license in the last 5 years. As far as, so business has been going strong. What was the other question? I'm sorry.
When calendar-wise were you?
Oh, calendar-wise, that's right. I'm sorry. Okay, so I was sick with COVID the first week of June is when I got sick. June 1st is when I went and got tested. And so, it was a 2-week period that I was pretty sick with COVID.
Yeah. Okay. And I know at some point you want to apologize for your office in the background. So I'm just going to give you the opportunity.
Let me do that, would you please? Thank you so much. I apologize for the mess behind me. I am working from home. I normally work from home, and I am in the middle of having my office completely renovated with custom built-in. So it's wonderful behind me. And I guess I should also say that I am in my brokerage out here in Katy is I'm with Keller Williams. There's 2 offices out here. I'm with Keller Williams Premier out here in Katy, Texas.
Awesome. Okay. Tara, are you more ready?
I am.
Great.
Awesome. So I'm Tara from Fort Lauderdale, and I am a 3rd-generation realtor. I am with Keller Williams as I am on a team with my family. They've been in the business for about 35 years. Last year we did 30 million. And we've been #1 in our market center consistently for about 4 years. I've only been in the business about 5. And I also am a Labcoat Agents moderator. And I would say that, my business really stopped in March. We had some really big goals for this year too. My business stopped March 21st. I locked up the doors and working from home. This is my dining room. That I transformed into my Zoom room. And because I teach and train a lot of classes too. So it's like, it's been Zoom nonstop. I'm surprised we're not over it by now. And so I went on serious lockdown, and I happen to be living in the epicenter of the whole world for COVID right now too. So great. And because I went on full lockdown, I legitimately did not show any houses, complete lockdown, March, April, May, and June. June, I started to slowly come out of my shell. And I managed to keep that #1 spot for May, June, April, and for the whole year without showing any houses.
Yeah, that's incredible. We're definitely going to be talking about that some today. So you have been sick more recently in June.
Mm-hmm.
Erica, early June. Actually, you guys were both sick around the same time, I guess.
Yeah, probably around the same time.
Tara, did you give it to me?
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah,
Totally
I'm
did.
sure, because you guys are at the same brokerage. I think that's how it happened. So, I got a chance to talk with both of you a little bit about your experiences, not together, but separate. And it's really interesting there is, and we're seeing this talked about more and more in media, the stigma around being COVID positive, right? There's even parallels and articles, lots of articles that I'm seeing now, like, oh, the last time we had this huge virus was HIV that came through our country, and the stigma. Now, it's interesting to me because I think we should definitely get into this some, talk about what it was like for both of you when you when you realized that you were positive, and you probably knew even before a test. Is that right? What would you say?
I would say yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point now, you get sick, and every time you get sick, you're like, you get COVID.
I know.
I had a sneeze.
Clearing my throat, and I'm terrified actually this morning. I'm not really terrified, but I am like,
I think there's a big stigma around it. And I think that the reason being is, well, one, a lot of people are scared. I was scared to death. I wouldn't even leave my house. Like literally would not leave my house. So, and now it's like, and then when you have it and you've had it, you have like this like red dot on your forehead that like everybody knows and sees it. And some people feel a little weird about it. And I went and closed I did a walkthrough the other day with an agent. She goes, don't come anywhere near me, as if we're wearing masks. And I was like, why, are you sick? And she's like, no, but you were. I'm like, I've had 2 negative tests since then. Like, calm yourself, lady. But listen, everybody's version of how they want to deal with it is different. So everyone's going to have their own stigma around it and whatnot. But I do have to say, and I'm sure Erica can agree, there's a lot of emotions that you feel like you are disgusting. You almost feel like you have this like sick disease and everybody's scared of you. Nobody wants to go around you because you get them infected. And guess what? You are. That's totally true. So you are like an animal locked in a cage that, nobody wants to be around. And I don't know. It's like when what was the show where she had was it Scarlet, and she had to wear the S on her chest or whatever? I don't know. I feel like that's what it is.
I'm clueless, but I'm getting your picture.
Yeah.
Right, Erica?
Yeah. So out here, we were always essential. So real estate didn't stop here, and I did not stop. So unlike Tara, who was staying in and not going anywhere, I was out and I was going everywhere. Okay. One of the things that I believe is unfortunate about just society in general today is that we have so much fear that is fed into us by the media. And there's, in particular with COVID, it's hard to know what's true and not true. And the other thing is a virus can't be seen. And so I feel like there's a lot of fear in the unknown, okay? You don't know where you get it from. You don't know where you can pick it up from. And some people have it, don't even know they're sick. And so there's a lot of fear that is driven in just in essence of the pandemic alone, right? And I see people living in fear. My sister-in-law, she does. I see people in my office that their production has tremendously suffered because they're afraid to get out and basically just, do things on a day-to-day basis. And I agree with what Tara said. When I started realizing that I was sick, I did not want to announce it. I did not want to announce it.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about what other people would think. And my concerns about what other people would think actually came true in my experience. And I know that we're going to talk about the rumors and some of that stuff later. I had friendships that were affected by it. I literally had friends that I lost over it. And so, it was a valid concern for me to have. And now that I've had COVID, everywhere you go, you're asked questions, right? Heck, I took my pets to the vet and they wanted to know, they come to your car and get your animal. You don't go inside, but they question, have you been around anyone that has COVID? Do you, have you had COVID? And just like Tara, I mean, mine was at the beginning of June. I've since tested negative twice. My answer to those questions now is no. It's been long of a distance in between them. because when you say yes, everybody looks at you like you have 5 heads. You will literally see people back themselves away from you. They don't know how to respond to it. And you know what? I can't give you that now. Unless I get positive again, I can't give you COVID now that I'm negative. So it's okay. It's okay. But it feels like, and I gave you the analogy, the only thing that I could think of was, how did people in the 1980s feel when the AIDS pandemic, when that was out? Now, totally different, a lot of differences there. But still, I mean, nobody knew how to handle it. They thought that you could get it just by X, Y, and Z. And it ended up being totally different than what people initially thought. And this just kind of keeps on changing, I mean,
A novel virus, right? That it's new. We haven't dealt with it before. And I'm sure, and actually interestingly, when you both shared your experiences with me, which we don't need to get into on this, but you were both given very different treatment and advice treatment from your doctors at the same time, just in different states, and we're all seeing that with people. How their treatments are different, their diagnosis is different, how many negatives you need to get before you're allowed to start doing things. It changes all the time because we're only 4 months into this. So,
Definitely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, my question for you guys is, did you have a plan in place for if you got sick with COVID as far as business is concerned?
We had some plans in place only because the first month of COVID, I had 2 team members, had family that was immediate family that was really, really sick, and they ended up passing away on ventilators. So that was the first 30 days of COVID. And that's really what made me stay home. Like it happened, it hit so hard for me at the very beginning. And one thing that I want to mention too, because I know that Mel, when we spoke, I made a really big mistake because I was so hyped up when COVID hit and we had to go from home. I thought that this was the opportunity that I finally had to take market share. I was like, I didn't want it to be where people get sick and die, of course, but I was like, this, I've been waiting for this. I want to take more market share. Like, this is the opportunity. Like, I've been waiting for a shift in the market. I knew it was coming. I just didn't think it would come because of this. So I was like, rah, 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 let's go. Like, we can do this. And I was encouraging the team. So I'm on, the James Shaw pivot shift calls every morning. And my team called at 8:30 and then keeping the team motivated. And I had a gentleman on my team because they tell us care calls, right? So I had a gentleman on my team and he calls me after one of our team meetings and he's like, I just have to be honest with you, Tara. He's like, I really appreciate the fact that you're trying to hold us all accountable to our goals and you're trying to push us to stay motivated. But I have to tell you, not one time on that call did you ask, how are you guys? Or like, it's all business. There's no personal. And he's like, and by the way, how are you? And I was like, I'm fine. He's like, no, really, how are you? And then I was honest. And so that opened my eyes a lot to where I was going around and making the care calls and and telling the team, hey, we got to make our care calls. How many calls do you make today? And I wasn't actually catering or doing the same kind of calls to my own team. So that was the biggest aha. So if anyone's not doing that or hasn't done that, I'd suggest to do that because that made a pivot. And I noticed when I made those calls, how much everybody was struggling individually. I had no idea. And that's when I learned that 2 team members had family members that eventually passed away. And so that's really what made me stay home even more because it just wasn't worth it. So that plan came into place like naturally. So then when that happened, we didn't have one before, but it told us that we needed to come up with a plan. So the only plan that we had into place was our team to be in rotations or use our group chat in order to talk about who's going to be in the office and who's not, because we said there can't be more than 2 of us inside the office. Because we have the largest office in the office, and so that was the biggest plan. And then it was who's going to be taking over your business, which I would love to jump into soon, because when we were talking about it for you too, fortunately, thank God for my team. I forwarded the phone calls. I had someone checking my emails. Like, I was not working whatsoever. So your business can't, just because you're sick, your business still keeps moving and you need to manage it. And if you don't have a team, I know that we're going to talk about some great ideas on how you can get your boundaries and all facts of your business covered while you are your solo agent.
So it was a lot different for me because I'm not a big team. It's myself and my administrative assistant, who is a licensed real estate agent. And unfortunately, she was sick at the same time that I was. The interesting thing is even though she was very sick, her COVID tests, all of them were negative. All of them. There's no way that she did not have COVID.
Yeah, this is another very interesting
There's
thing.
no way. And she'll tell you that. And she gave me permission today on the phone to say that, this. And so I did not have a plan in place because I'm invincible.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I didn't. I wasn't wearing a mask when I went out. I was one of those people that was, the government's not going to tell me what to do, right? I wear a mask now. I don't wear a mask for myself because I don't believe the mask protects me. It protects you. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things people will say, do you know where you got it from? I have no idea where I got it from. I have no idea. And my office had a plan in place. There were a couple other agents in my office that tested positive for COVID before I did. And the thing is I hardly ever go into my office. There's over 360 agents in my office. And quite frankly, pretty much nobody's going in there anyways.
Right.
And, they already had their protocols in place on, you're not allowed in common areas. And, if you're going to be in your office, the door has to be shut. If you're in the hallways, mask has to be on. I mean, the office had amazing protocols in place, but the office is not me. Right. And I work from home, right? You see it behind me. And so I had gone into the office once to get my mail within the previous 2 weeks. I don't remember the exact day. I went in, got my mail, turned around and walked out. So even though other agents in my office tested positive, a couple others, did I get it from there? I honestly don't think so. I mean, I could have. Maybe I touched a door handle and that's where I got it from. I have no idea, but there's no way for me to prove that. But my office went into gear. They had professional companies. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars having professional companies come in and clean the office. It was shut down, I don't know. So the office had different protocols in place. Yeah. Once people got sick, I know there's a protocol in the office where the, our broker and other folks in the administrative team were calling around and doing care calls like Tara asked and asking if people were okay. The people who were calling around didn't know who had COVID in the office. So our office had a protocol where they kept your information confidential because of HIPAA. So they weren't broadcasting the agents' names. When I was sick, I would think going into that even now, if I get sick, hopefully by having my licensed assistant, that she's got my back if I'm not able to do my work. And in this case, that didn't happen. She was sick at the same time, so neither one of us could be out doing stuff. So my team literally came to a screeching halt. My problem is that I will work through most things. And so I did not shut off my phone. I did not forward calls. I had no one to forward them to. I mean, Shelly was still helping, But one of the things that you and I discussed, Mel, is that I should have. Yeah. I should have taken time to be sick because I was really, really sick.
Yeah, I mean, Erica, you're talking to me about how you could hardly get to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Yet,
yeah. I was dealing with not only the experience of being sick with COVID, which, let's talk about some of the symptoms, right? Because people question that. People, you'll see people say, oh, it's like the flu, just a little bit worse. I've never had a flu that's that bad. I don't know about Tara, but, I lost taste, I lost smell. The headaches were absolutely excruciatingly painful, just debilitating headaches to the point where you just could barely even function on what you're trying to do. And mind you, my husband's at home working because he's not allowed into his office, and I have a 6-year-old and I have an 11-year-old. So when I started feeling sick on that Sunday night, and on that Monday, when I went and got tested, my concern was, how am I going to take care of my family so that they don't get this? And 3 days later, my husband got it, and both of my kids got it. So we were all sick. So later that week, I was dealing with a 6-year-old with a 104 fever while I was in the bathroom throwing up, having diarrhea, headaches, the cough, the soreness, the chest pain. Luckily, I did not have to go into the hospital. I did not have to go on a ventilator. And one of the things that we discussed is that when I got tested and I tested positive, when my results came in 4 days later, there was no medication that was, when I went in to get the test, they gave me a Z-Pack. They gave me cough medicine and an inhaler. And once once the positive results came back, there was no different medication that I was giving at any point until I developed pneumonia. And when I developed pneumonia, they gave me some antibiotics.
Yeah.
But my plan was that I had to work through this, because while I was sick, I had 3 closings that first week, and I had 4 homes that I put active in the market in that week and a half. And I had 2 buyers that needed to go have showings. Yeah. And so I really quickly had to get a backup plan since my administrative assistant was down.
Labcoat Agents is full of people that are cut from the same cloth of thinking we're invincible. We're high achievers. We are leaders, and we don't want to even think about stopping, right? Both of you. Tara's like, I'm taking market share. Yes. And Erica's like, I'm not stopping. I'm not going to change anything. I got this. Right. And we're talking to a group of people that is a lot like us, right? We are known for being tenacious and resilient. And that's awesome. And we can attribute a ton of our success to that. It is also a weakness when we think we're invincible. Mothers, especially, thinking they're invincible. Like, Erica's like, I'm not going to change anything. So I would love if both of you would touch on, if there's one thing you might do differently or advise someone like me who is yet to experience coronavirus in my house, or myself, how we could do this so that our clients are getting great care and we aren't compromising our recovery in order to take care of everybody.
I want Tara to take the lead on that question, but I also want Tara to really quickly, based off of the last question, say what her experience with COVID was like, with her being sick, because we had a little bit of experience.
Let's hear about what she saw coming to the wall. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So I have not publicly talked about all this until now, so this is going to be fun. I got COVID thanks to Tinder.
You go, girl.
And anybody that's like watching this, if you're living alone through this whole thing, talk about the isolation. It's different. Like, I almost wish I could just adopt kids just to be able to have somebody here. And the isolation part is horrendous. And I'm a high I on the disc profile, and my love language is physical touch. So I'm like, I can't take it anymore.
Losing your mind. Yep.
Yeah. And the isolation's real. So I finally went on these dating apps, and I decided to put myself out there. And I went on a date, and the restaurant was great, but because they closed down and I was like an animal let out of the cage for the first time, I was like, oh, well, I don't want to go home yet. Like, I'm out. Like, this is awesome. And so I went to a really not so great pool hall bar. And when I opened the door, nobody was wearing masks for social distancing. And I was feeling liquid courage, which is why I agree with the bars being not open late. We have curfew now here too. And I totally got it from there, 100%. 3 days later, I had a sore throat. I went to the beach by myself and just cleansed my sinuses and laid out in the sun for vitamin D. By nighttime, forget it. I had body aches and fevers and chills. I haven't been that sick since I was in 7th grade with mono, and I'm in my 30s, and I live a very holistic life. My family doesn't believe in doctors. I'm not really allowed to take any prescriptions. my 83-year-old grandmother doesn't even take any prescriptions. And I haven't been sick. I haven't even had a cold in over 3 years. My immune system is pretty strong. I get IVs monthly. Like, anybody wants to, those things are amazing. So, so when I got sick, I was like, oh, I'm really sick. And I rolled around in my bed moaning like a 5-year-old wanting a mother for like 3 days. I was seeing these things flying on my walls because I was hallucinating because my fever was so high. I have to say the body aches were the worst part ever. I mean, it literally felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. I've never felt anything like it in my life. And then I called my doctor and he's like, do not go to the hospital. Unless you need a ventilator, do not go to the hospital. And I was like, what do I do? And he's like, Tylenol and fluids until you throw up. And I was like, that's it? Like, you can't even give me anything else? And he's like, no, when you go to the hospital too, you're lucky. He's like, none of the other remedies really work for you. So then I decided to take, which I'll post it in the comments. I decided to take 3 holistic, like they're like little pellets. I took belladonna, and within 24 hours, my fever was gone. I took the other one that was for body aches. Within 24 hours, body aches gone. So the recovery for that was like 3-4 days. And then I have to say that since I've had it, now I'm over about a month, 5 weeks maybe. Since I've had it, I have not been able to work out whatsoever because I get so out of breath, like I'm 80 years old. I have been super tired. I take like 1 to 2 naps a day, like I'm 82. And it's weird because I can feel it sitting in my chest still, but I know I'm not sick. So I'm just trying to be very, very cautious for the most part. Does that answer your question? That's kind of a summary of what it was.
I can still feel it in my chest as well.
Yeah, I can too.
I can still feel it in there. And only at night when I lay down to go to bed, I'll cough sometimes, not horribly. So yeah, I think that one of the things that you asked, that Tara had said that she took time to stay sick. And Mel, when you and I were talking prior to getting onto this, when you were interviewing me, one of the, you asked me if I could look back and change things, what's one of the things I would do? And one of the things I told you is realize that it's okay not to be okay. And that I should have taken time to be sick, but I was still trying to take care of my clients, even though I was sick. So that's kind of, wrapping up, I think that question is that we both experienced some similar symptoms and some different symptoms, and we're handling them different. I was taking vitamin D. Of course, everybody's, the people that you tell start telling what you should and shouldn't be doing.
I can't. I'm like, are you a scientist?
It's like having a baby and everybody tells you what you do to need to raise a child.
And they read it. They read it on Facebook, what they should tell you to do.
Yeah, I don't even listen. I just trusted my own gut. And then I would have to say that I agree with the fact that like you need to realize that it's okay to not be okay. Because I have to say, like, since I've had it in the last week or so, I know when we talked, I was a hot mess. I need a vacation. I need a break. I need out of here. And the fact that I live in the epicenter for the whole world. So Florida's the epicenter for the world right now. And South Florida is the epicenter for Florida. We're getting 10,000 cases plus a day. And our hospitals are at 96% capacity again. So it's kind of scary, but then it's like, what's the boundary of like, how much do you live in fear versus, because before I was in complete fear. I didn't go out. And the one time I went out one time and got it, the first time I went out, I freaking get it. And I was the only one on my real estate team, really, truly social distancing, really, truly in isolation, total lockdown. And I was the only one who got it personally. I was like, man. So even my friends are like, are you ever going to come out of your house? I'm like, no. So that was hard. So the plan in place, I think that it would come down to one, talking about it. I think talking about mental health, I wish I would have talked about that sooner and maybe even reached out sooner, because the mental health struggle through it all and through the lockdown is rough. I've never had a mental capacity like I feel like I have lately, and I still have to keep going because people rely on me, and I have a team, and I teach, I train. And so I think that the mental capacity for people to talk about mental health, and if I wish I would have a plan in place if around the mental health aspect of like, what am I going to do in order to really keep my spirits up? Because I know all the things that I did when we were in lockdown and I wasn't sick to keep my spirits up. But when I got sick and felt like I was like this like weirdo, that has this animal with a sick disease, like I truly feel like an animal. I wish that I would have had more plans in place around mental health. And the second thing I think is to really have a solid plan in place for the team. Now, I look at it like, luckily, my 2 team leaders is my mom and uncle. So they know me pretty well. And I'm like, guys, I literally was like, I'm not answering. Like, I'm done working. Like, I can't even help myself. I can barely make it to the bathroom. Yeah. So if I were a solo agent or even an agent in Erica's situation, I would have somebody in place that knows where all your files are stored, where all your passwords are stored, what current deals do you have? Is that your transaction coordinator? And if you're a single agent, so if I take my team out of it, right, I can think of, in the beginning of the career, even though my family was in the business and I grew up in the business, I still went out and found mentors. I went and interviewed agents and asked them, what would you do differently if you had to start all over? What piece of advice do you have for me? What do you think makes your success? Like, I interviewed the best of the best agents and I found mentors. So through that, I know that if I did not have my team, I have 2 mentors I can call right now. Matt Forelli, if you're listening, I know I can call Matt right now and he would 1000% take over my business. No questions asked whatsoever. But how can somebody take over your business if you don't give them a plan, right? If you don't give them your guidelines, your manual, your operations manual. Yes. So things like, when you open up a door, you turn the door and then you open the door and then you turn the light switch over to the left and you flip it on. Like and I think that because we're realtors and there's lots of squirrels, I think that one of the things that I don't do well that I would like to have is literally a legit operations manual of exactly how we operate in case, God forbid, we were, Erica, can you imagine if you and your assistant were in ventilators? Or if my team members that they lost their family members, if they left the team and then me and my mom and uncle were sick because we worked together, I could go down the rabbit hole on that. So the operations manual and being open about mental health.
So what I did as far as the plan that I had to quickly come up with is I notified, it's not just a business plan, it's a business plan and a life plan that you have to have in place because you're going to need help in your personal life as well as in your business life when this hits you because you can't go anywhere and you sure as hell aren't going to get up and cook yourself a meal, Yeah. So one of the first people that I notified was my broker. I reached out to them and I let them know that I was sick and that I might need help. Okay. And they were super supportive. They sent me a gift card to Grubhub so that my family could order food. And
yeah, brokers take note.
It was so nice. Good. Huh?
I said, yes, brokers take note. That's
right. Yes. Thing to do. Sent cookies for the kids. I had other friends. I really kept it to a very small group of people that we let know. I had a couple friends who brought over toys for the kids, because like little art projects that they could do on their own because my husband and I were down for the counting in bed. So I notified our Bible study and our Bible study group came together and they did a meal train. And so even in your office for real estate, if your real estate office can have a plan in place where agents can do meal trains, then, that would be good. And I see that Tara is actually writing in a couple things to chat right now. I took the same thing that I don't even know how to pronounce it. That also. Yeah, we were taking that. All of us, kids too. Yeah. So that's one of the homeopathic things that we were taking.
The pellets, the carbonaca. Don't even ask me how to say those things. The ferrum. That one and the belladonna got down the fever. And again, this is what worked for me. And then my uncle just got it and I drove all the way to him and brought him these and his fever and fever was gone in 24 hours. Oh. I don't know. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. But there's nothing really else you can take. So
yeah. Sorry, that was a total squirrel moment. I saw that pop up.
There was a question, so I was just answering it.
But going back to protocols, so I notified them. So when I had buyer clients that wanted to go see homes and I notified my clients. So that's the other thing. You have to start making those phone calls, telling people who you had been around that you are sick. Those are horrible phone calls to make because you don't know how people are going to react to it.
Horrible phone calls.
Yeah.
So, wait, can we talk about the calls that you had to make when you found out you were sick to all the people that you were around? Those were brutal.
Yeah.
Those were so embarrassing and so brutal. Yeah. I was, and especially, not to get personal, I was intimate with somebody and had to call and I was like, So, by the way, and like, I was like,
I just met you on Tinder, but
it wasn't him. It wasn't him. I don't sleep on the first date.
oh, well, I didn't think you were talking about sleeping with him.
No, you want to hear about the best part is that the guy from the health department said, "Who have you been around? Where have you been?" And I was like, honestly, I was on a Tinder date and I totally ghosted the guy. Can you call him for me?
So did you get a phone call from the health department? I did not.
Yeah. Health department, they wanted to know everywhere I'd been.
Isn't that interesting how different it just varies so hugely area to area? So you had an involved public health department wanting to do some contact tracing, and Erica not a phone call.
They asked
the thing is in Texas, if Texas isn't pretty parallel with Florida, we're not too far behind you as far as being an epicenter for this stuff. We're about to go into second lockdown, so you know.
We're basically there right now. The worst part is that when I went to go get retested, so my second time, so because the second wave came and things were just a little crazy, it took me so long to be able to go get tested again. So to the point to where it took me 3 days to go find a testing site. I finally went to one that was a drive-through because it's so hot. So I don't want to sit in the sun forever. And I show up at the drive-through and I see the line and I go to get gas because that's how long the line was to fill up. Then I get to the end of the line and I asked the detail cop, and I said, "How long have you been working here?" He's like, "A couple months." I'm like, "Is it always this long?" He's like, "Only last week." And I said, "Okay, if I'm here, how long does it take me to get to the front of the line?" He's like, "About 4 to 4.5 hours." I was like, "What? I got things to do. Where do you pee?"
Where do you pee?
I gotta go. This is crazy. So then I tried to get into anywhere and everywhere was backed up for at least a week. So when I got my retest, even though I knew I was negative when I took it, it took 10 days to get it back. So I was home for a total of almost 30 days.
Oh, wow.
I've only been back out like 2 weeks, I think. And then some people don't even want to go around you because they're like, "Well, you had it." I'm like, I'm not. I can get it again tomorrow.
Making the phone calls, I didn't have a public health official contact me. Nobody contact traced me or anything like that. But I made the phone calls and pretty much nobody, honestly, like to me, just internally, I hyped myself up more over making the phone calls into thinking it was a big deal than it actually was based off of the responses from the people that I told. So my clients were all fine. I even had gone on a listing appointment 4 days before I got sick. So, you know, she was about to sign a listing agreement with me. You know, she was okay. I mean, a lot of people asked if, is there anything we can do to help, things like that. But it was definitely nerve-wracking to make those calls and then worry about whether or not your family was going to get sick. And then just go through that entire process. Once I was well into being sick and then notified who I wanted to notify, and I really am pointing that out for a reason. I notified the people who needed to know, and I notified who I wanted to notify. I notified my broker. I didn't want to make an announcement to my office. It was none of everybody's business. And that's one of the things that I have an issue with when it comes to this pandemic, is that people think that they have a right to know your personal business. And you guys, we don't have a right to know anybody else's personal business unless you had personally been around me, unless you had been in a location that I had been at, which my office, they notified all the agents in the office that people had COVID. At that point, if you have concern, go get yourself tested and quarantine if you feel like you need to quarantine. But you don't need to know exactly who I was, because if you would have been right around me, I would have called you and let you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is that when people, somehow it started leaking, not only in my office, but even to my friendship network. Mm-hmm. People started finding out that I had it, and not because I told them directly. And that's when the rumors started. And that to me was one of the most hurtful things. So we talk about mental health. Tara mentioned mental health earlier in this webinar. And when you're going through being that sick, and then you find out that people are talking about you behind your back and they're spreading rumors. I had another real estate agent in my office after the fact, after I had, wasn't sick anymore, I let this agent know that I had had COVID, and the agent told me that, oh, you know what, I had heard that, but I didn't want to say anything because I knew it was none of my business, because I know you. And if you would have wanted me to tell you, or if you would have wanted me to know, you would have called and told me. And that agent told the agent that told the information that the agent really probably shouldn't be going around saying stuff, and that they didn't want to know, they don't want to further talk about it. And that's the whole thing, is there's no for what purpose does it serve for agents in an office, or even friendship circles, if you take it into your personal life? What purpose does it serve to be talking about people and spreading those rumors, unless you are calling me or that person, like Tara was talking about, a care train? Unless you are calling and you're asking if they're okay or how you can help, it is none of your business. And everybody just needs to keep their mouth shut, and it would be a better place, right? I don't know how, Tara, did you experience any of that?
No, I didn't experience any negativity when it came to friends, or I'm the one who called my family members to tell them. And like I said, I wasn't around a lot of people. My only fear was when I was feeling better, I did go to my mom's house, which is my mom and Nana, and my Nana's 83. So I was around them for 15 minutes just because I couldn't take being home anymore. And it was selfish. I don't think that there's a lot of people who are, especially my age, who could have stayed home, even though I knew I was not sick anymore, for as long as I did. It was brutal. It was really brutal. But I just felt like I would be an irresponsible adult to go out and, God forbid, still have it and be out. And instead of just being like, oh, well, I'm not sick anymore, I feel fine, and then let me go out. So I think that most people felt pretty comfortable with the fact that they know that I really was staying home and was really serious about this from the beginning. And I just made one mistake. Not a lot of people knew. They guessed because they saw me home. And to help me with some of my sanity, I started fostering animals like cats. And I don't even like cats. So now I'm on my second group of cats, and all 3 got adopted. So I had 3, now I have another 3. And I've had them for 5 weeks now. And that's kept me sane, because anytime there's negativity going on, and especially like when the protest started and then our second wave came, I just go hang out with them, and they're so little and babies and they don't know any better. So they were also needed a lot of work. So it helped distract me to put my attention and love and energy into them. And then, teaching a coaching program with Michael Mayer, that's been really helpful. Other than that, I have to say, very blessed that I don't have those people in my life to come after me like that. And I think most people know, and I'm sure for you too, because I know you're a strong woman as well. If anybody came to me with that nonsense, I'd be like, guess what? Maybe we shouldn't be friends to begin with. So kick rocks. Bye. I need new friends. This is a great cleanse anyways. I got sick. Now I'm over it. Let's cleanse my friends too.
So I know.
So they don't deserve you, Erica. They don't deserve you.
Mel, I know that we kind of took this and ran with it from the question that you asked that we skipped. Did we answer that question, or where do we need to go back to it?
No, I think that we did a good job with laying out some plans. The tough thing is, those of us that can fall into perfectionism, like myself, are like, yeah, I need a full-on operations manual. And I've got too many active clients this week and kids home. And so if you could give just three tips of what to do. Now, I heard a prominent one, which is having a mentor. So what I appreciated about Tara's point is having someone. This isn't just get a licensed assistant who isn't very active, because then they'll have time. This was find a mentor, someone that you totally trust their negotiation skills, you trust their marketing, you trust their communication level, how seriously they will take caring for your baby, your business baby, when you can't. That's different than just find someone who can open doors for people, right? Because if you're truly, like, if you are knocked out for 2 to 3 weeks, you need someone who is keeping those deals happening for you. So I thought that that was very important and a big takeaway for me. What are 2 others? Well, actually, Erica, you said one, which was also having a personal, this is not just business, but having a personal plan in place for those who do have kids and partners. How are you doing that? You know, we have as someone else, another moderator right now who has a son who is sick with COVID, and she's got, you know, 3 other kids at home, and trying to take care of this sick kid and keep other kids from getting sick, that's like a full-time job.
Yeah, definitely. I think so it comes down to having a personal plan as well as a business. And I think that the other best advice that I have is you have to take care of yourself first. Like, it's like the same thing when you go on an airplane and you need a mask. Why? You have to take care of yourself first. You are no good to anybody professionally. You're not even anybody good to as a friend personally if you are not good yourself. It's like, comes back to even the thing, like, I can't love you if I don't love myself. You know, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take the time. And I have a really crazy work ethic. I'm sure I know a lot of us do. And it's hard for me to let go. And I have realized that since I've been like recovering and, you know, things are kind of getting back to normal, I feel safe to go out in the middle of the epicenter. I have to say that I finally, when I talked to you, Mel, last week, I mean, I just had enough. I've had enough in isolation. I've had enough because I cannot serve. So I canceled every single appointment that I have or got it covered. One lady said she didn't want anybody else besides me on the team. And I said, I can appreciate that. So I will be back next week. And if you're still available and haven't hired somebody, then I would like to still interview for the position. Normally, I would just run. I don't want, oh my God, I can't lose out this opportunity. Yeah. Guess what? Yes, I can. I need to take care of myself first. So I'm leaving town tomorrow. I am not coming back until Sunday, Monday, if I feel like it. And I don't care. Normally, I'd freak out. I don't care. I need this for my own sanity. Oh, and then of course, my $3 million buyer calls me today and says, I'm coming back in town to move out of the rental to go buy the house. I'm like, I'm not going to be here, but I already got that covered. You know what? I can't stress what I can't stress. I need to take care of myself. I need a reset. I need a recharge, and I don't feel guilty about it whatsoever. So the moral of that is take care of yourself first. You got to take care of yourself first. Yeah. Have to.
So there's 2 things that I can think of off the top of my head. One is have your services in place. I think there's a lot of real estate agents that will install their own signs. Some of you, for some reason, do your own photography, you know, things like that. You know,
some of you shouldn't, all of you shouldn't.
Number one, know who your backup servicers, are going to be when things happen, whether it's COVID or anything else. Know who your sign installer is going to be, who's going to be your photographer, who's going to be your showing assistant. Notify your title companies. Make sure you have a title company that you work with often, that you have a partnership with. So if you're sick, you can notify them and they can take over that for there. Shareable data, which Tara kind of talked about. I know that, I mean, I have everything of mine stored in Google Drive. I don't have any papers. I have a filing cabinet behind me that's full of like tax documents. It has no client paperwork. I am 100% digital. And so somebody would be able to get into my Google Drive if I gave them the access to it, and they would be able to get the information that they need. But also know who the person is in your office who is processing your files, who is reviewing the files. So whether it's for compliance review or whatever, because they can help make sure that your files in those situations, that they're getting taken care of as well. And then also knowing who your people are going to be and making sure that you talk to people ahead of time and say, hey, listen, if I were to get sick, would you be able to help me and have my back? Would you be able to do this for me? I mean, I called one of my title marketing reps who I have a good friendship with, and she would go and pick me up medicine. She would go and get me lunch during lunch breaks, you know, and like I said, it was for my whole family. Mm-hmm. So when they say it takes a village, you literally have to be okay calling it out to your village, but make sure you have a village to call out to.
Right. Yep. I think that's such good practical steps. And, you know, even without coronavirus, there are car accidents, there is cancer, there are things that people don't expect to have happen to them and in their personal lives that can trash a business really quickly.
Yeah.
So this is part of running our, real estate business like a business.
Well, so some people when I said earlier that I listed 4 homes while I was sick, remember that my administrative assistant could not go out to the properties, right? Mm-hmm. So I had a referral from an agent in Louisiana, and her friend had spent weeks getting ready. And of course, she calls me when I get sick and says she's ready to list the house. Mm-hmm. I hadn't even gone to the house, and it was an hour away from here, an hour. And so what I did was I called one of my stagers. I had the stager go to the property. The stager consulted and did a walkthrough for a make ready for the home. It wasn't vacant. And the stager FaceTimed me through the house so that I could see the house. I listed that house having never seen it, having never met the seller or anything except for a phone call.
I'm sure the 3 of us sold a lot of houses that we never even went in the last 4 months. A lot.
I haven't seen any house until last week since March, and there's been 18. And I haven't seen any of them. And they don't feel bad about it. And sometimes I feel bad. I hate not being able to go to the closings, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
I mean, we've seen them. We're just through a screen.
Virtually.
So those are 3 things that I would.
Yeah, that's super resourceful, Erica. That's great.
Yeah, those are important. Those are good lists. I think we forget about it. And you know what, my aha was, we were talking about first of all, what Erica said, and that's like having a plan that would be in your operations manual as like an emergency. And then you said, Mel, about, us running our business like a business. And it makes me feel like this aha that I am not as great of a business person as I thought it was, because I don't have an operations manual. So I think my first step is going to be making an emergency operations manual, have it in writing. Just basically what you just said, Erica, that would all be in your emergencies manual. If this happens, here's the list of who we need to call first and what we need to do. And there's the information. I think that's what hold me accountable to that. Give me 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm taking off a week or so.
Yeah. Not this week that you're going to take some space for yourself.
Yeah. This whole week. Yeah.
Good for you. Do either of you have anything else you want to add? Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
I would say just in general, so from when I got sick, and again, it just hit me. I look back on it, and probably for about 4 or 5 days before I got sick, I had a tickle in my throat. I was clearing my throat, but I get that with allergies. So I wasn't thinking that was anything. That's the only thing I can look back on and say, okay, well, maybe that was an indicator,
Mine, I had the same thing for me, just a tickle in my throat. And I was like, it's weird.
Yeah. So I got tested on January 1st. That's when it started hitting me really hard. It was by midweek the following week that I started. There was a couple days at the beginning of the following week where I started feeling better. I thought, oh, good, I'm starting to get in the clear. And then I got sick again and went back to the doctor and found out I had pneumonia. After that, as far as getting negative tests, so I was going off of the advice of my doctor. So the CDC has 2 sets of guidelines as far as when you can resume. And it's not just for normal people. This is in regards to actual nurses and people who are in that industry, right? And so they have symptoms-based, and then they have test-based. And keep in mind that even with test-based, you can have false negatives and you can have false positives. And my administrative assistant is a very good example of that, as her tests were negative, but she was super sick as well. Okay. And so my doctor went off symptoms based, and based off of the amount of time that I had not had symptoms, my doctor advised that I could go back to work. So I slowly started doing things, but I was super precautious with things. And was wearing a mask and was wearing had gloves, and would open doors with, an antibacterial wipe, not touching things and stuff like that, but more on a limited basis of what I was doing. I wasn't just like out and just, going full force or anything like that. But I also knew that I needed the negative test so that people wouldn't freak out. And so I went and I got retested, and both of my tests came in negative. The first time that I had a negative test come in was probably about 2.5 weeks after I had been sick, and I got a negative test. And I was super scared about getting that test in, because I know that because the test tests for the RNA. And so even like the slightest little RNA molecule or whatever the heck they are can cause you to have a positive test, but you're not contagious and you don't really technically still have COVID. And so that can go up to 10 weeks. If I'm not going to wait for 10 weeks to get a negative test before I go back to work. So I was going based off of when my doctor told me symptoms-based wise from the CDC that I could start returning and doing some things with precaution. And so that's kind of how I got restarted. And then, you know, once I got the negative test, and maybe Tara feels the same way, I thought that I had like my badge of honor finally. Like, you know, I was texting my friends, you know, parents of friends of my kids and saying like, you know, we're good to go now. Here's the negative test. Send it to my broker here. Here's the negative test. Go ahead and send that out to everybody who was all concerned, you know, things like that. So sending it to my clients, here's the negative test. But good Lord, I mean, I couldn't imagine if it would have taken 10 weeks for that negative test to come in. I mean, how could I have stalled out on business that long? I don't know, you know, I mean, luckily, you know, I was sick for probably a good week and a half or so. What was yours, Tara?
How did you re-enter, Tara? Tara's kind of still re-entering. That's why she's going away for a week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm out showing more now. I finally went to 2 closings this past week for the first time since March. So that felt good to kind of be, and although they wouldn't let me stay in the room because my buyer was pregnant and the title person was pregnant, so that sucked. So I think it just depends on case by case scenario of what it was, but I didn't have, I'm still kind of out there. I mean, I went out, I'm going out a little bit. Here and there. I'm just being really cautious because I've spoken to 6 people who have gotten it again. So I don't feel like I'm untouchable.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is people will ask you, you know, can you get it again? And nobody really knows. And supposedly you can. So, you know, but the thing is that I'm not allowing the fear of the uncertainty of whether or not I can get COVID again, even having gone through the experience and being super, super sick. I am not letting that control my life. I can't do that. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen to me that I have no control over. And I have faith that I'm going to be okay. I have a feeling that if I get it a second time, logic would tell me it would probably be worse than the first time, just because I know I can still feel some tightness in my lungs. But I'm going out there and I'm continuing to do what I need to do to be in business, and you know, and I'm okay with that. I don't want the worst to happen. I don't want to die. I don't have a death wish or anything like that. But I just can't live like that. That's not that's not me. And that's, you know, absolutely. I don't want to get sick again. I really don't.
I don't either. I would just like to wrap up with, I think that however you choose to deal with this, whether it's living in fear or being out there, or what you choose to do after you get sick, is totally up to you. Just know that it's okay if you're not okay, and just to reach out to somebody and talk about it. Even if you're just scared just to get it and you haven't had it, feel free. I know Erica, Mal, we're all open books. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or you're just feeling kind of alone. I've gotten so many messages of people like, I have these symptoms. Did you have these? And I'm like, so, and however you choose to deal with it is how you choose to deal with it. And you can just trust your gut.
And I think that's the biggest thing is reach out to people and ask questions, reach out and let them know you're not okay. And that goes back to the whole mental health side that we've been talking about when we started this entire webinar too, is that there's a lot of people who are not okay right now. And, you know, whether you're shutting yourself in or you're putting yourself out there, you've gotten sick or whatever it happens to be, just know that like there's people like us, like Tara and myself, that are willing to talk to you. I didn't want to talk about it when I was sick, but I'm fine talking about it now. So.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Mel, for being an amazing host. And Erica, I gave it to you virtually, or you gave it to me.
Yes.
I appreciate you, ladies.
Yes, thanks for your vulnerability, and have a great rest of your day.